Casey. I'm a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I celebrate 5 years recovery from a pain pill addiction, 3 years recovery, 3.5 years recovery from a methamphetamine addiction, and 5 years from a sexual addiction. So, and right now I am currently working on codependency. So growing up, I had 2 older siblings, a brother and a sister, a mom and a dad in my household. We lived a pretty simple but good life. I idolized my older brother and followed him around everywhere. I wanted to be just like him, which to me that meant tough. We used to play fight a lot, and that's the way I learned to earn compliments. I started to find confidence in that. I liked it when my dad and brother called me things like mean or bragged on my fighting to their friends because I was a girl. I thought that made me special. Through grade school, I wanted to be a boy. I hated the thought of being a girl. I thought it made me look weak. I wore boys' clothes, and I acted like a boy, and I fought like a boy. When I was 12, my brother left and joined the Marine Corps. And this is when I really started to struggle. I felt like I'd lost part of my identity. I had a grandmother that I was really close to. She taught me about God. She taught me how to pray. I went to church off and on growing up, but my family didn't go, so my attendance was short-lived. At school, I really wasn't good at being a regular girl. I didn't know how to be pretty, so instead I focused on being mean and tough. Through elementary and middle school, I fought a lot, but I struggled with my self-confidence and self-image. At the age of 13, I started smoking pot, then drinking, soon followed by taking pain pills. This is how I started to develop my confidence, and it got me the attention that I wanted. At the age of 16, I started binge drinking and taking anything that I could to get high. That was the year I was first introduced to meth, and it quickly became my drug of choice. I started getting attention from boys and even grown men, and become very sexually active. I graduated high school and started working on a nursing degree, but I dropped out. By that point, I was drinking and getting high every free moment I had. This lifestyle led me to 2 overdoses. The night of my second overdose, I passed out, and a person that I knew almost my whole life had sex with me while I was unconscious. I blamed myself. I was humiliated. So outside of the few people that knew, I told no one. I moved to Georgia to get out of my addiction and to escape, but within 6 months, I was right back to where I started. The more I dabbled in the drug world, the more I began to act out sexually. I hated myself, and I saw no value in my life. At the age of 20, I met a man. We went to a bar together. He came home with me, and 4 weeks later, I found out I was pregnant. We decided to fix that by getting married. We barely knew each other, but I was determined to make it work. I stopped drinking, stopped using, but my new husband did not. On April 26th of 2006, I gave birth to the most beautiful, most healthy baby girl that I had ever seen. I was in love with her, and I was in love with being her mom. I found my identity in her. She consumed me. I thought it was a good thing in my mind. I believed my love for her would keep me sober. When my daughter turned 3, I hurt my back. I went to the doctor, and they quickly prescribed me hydrocodones. This started my battle with pain pills. already addicted, so between us both, my prescriptions didn't last long enough. I began buying them off the street. This made our already strained marriage worse. The next 5 years, my husband started working out of town for long periods of time, and I pretty much lived chasing pill addictions, terrified of detoxing. In 2012, I got pregnant again, and I was 12 weeks along, and I miscarried. I buried the disappointment and carried on with my growing pill addiction. My marriage was falling apart, but I was determined not to get a divorce. Almost 1 year later, I got pregnant again. In my mind, this fixed everything. And for a short period of time, that seemed to be the case. After being very open with my doctor about my pain pill taking, I was able to come off of them. My husband was out of town working through most of my pregnancy after I had my son. He was gone for 9 months straight, so I started back taking pain pills. We made plans to spend the summer with him in Louisiana. When I saw him for the first time, it was obvious that he had gotten back on meth. After spending 1 week there, I stopped taking pills and started using meth again. This began my complete downward spiral. During my stay there, we fought constantly, and for the first time, our fights turned into physical altercations. This became our new way of communication. When I left Louisiana, I was hurt, I was angry, and I was addicted to meth. I came home quickly, and I found a supplier. In just a few short months, I started pushing everyone away that I loved. I decided I wanted a divorce because all the fighting was really starting to take a toll on me. I hid what was going on from everyone. People suspected I was on something, but I would tell them I wasn't and that I was fine, that I could handle it. So in November of 2016, me and my husband separated. I thought this would fix everything. You see a pattern here? All these little quick fixes. But everything got worse. I started using very heavily, and our altercations got more and more violent. In January of 2017, my dad had a massive stroke. Me and my family stayed at the hospital for 7 days, and I watched him fight for his life. He ended up having many strokes, then passing away. This broke something inside of me, and I hated myself more than ever. I was eaten up with the guilt and shame. I hated that I was high the last hours that I spent with my dad. I started completely pushing away the rest of my family. And 1 week after my dad passed, I filed for divorce. I started seeing someone else, which made everything worse. I was in no shape to have a relationship with anyone, but I was so empty inside. I stopped eating, I stopped sleeping, my health started to go downhill, so I started seeing a psychologist and a psychiatrist. They talked to me for 5 minutes, and before I left out of there, I had prescriptions for antidepressants and antipsychotics. Of course, I didn't tell them I was self-medicating with meth. So, I thought the medicine would fix my brokenness. But it didn't. In my eyes, I had become completely worthless. I had a failed marriage, a broken home, I was a drug addict, I was a loser. No matter what I did, it only got worse. At times I tried to pray, but I just knew God wouldn't want me. It started to become very noticeable to people that I worked with that I was in addiction. So in May 2017, my divorce became final, but that did not stop the fighting or the abuse with my now ex-husband. He stole my car, my savings, the altercations become public, The bruises become noticeable, and I started to live in complete fear and paranoia, thinking everyone was out to get me. I spent all summer depressed and alone. I used men to get the attention and the affection I longed for, but I was at odds with all of my friends and my whole family at this point. I become a complete recluse. In October of 2017, I was at my complete breaking point. I could not see a way out of the insanity I was living in. I decided to take it into my own hands and end my life. I didn't want people to know that I took my life, so I planned it out. I was going to drive my car at high speed off Wrights Creek Bridge. So it would appear to be an accident. I left my house with this plan, and I started to drive down the road. I was doing about 65, 70 miles per hour, and I was about a mile and a half away from the bridge. I was crying, and I screamed out to God for the first time. And I said, if you're there, if you're real, you will help me. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed. Perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not abandoned. Struck down, but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9. Almost in that exact moment that I called out to him, a dog ran in front of my car, causing me to swerve off the road. I almost lost control of my car, but I didn't. It scared me. I sat there on the side of the road for a long time crying. My daughter's softball bow was hanging in the rearview mirror of my car, and when I swerved, it must have fell in my lap. So when I picked it up and looked at it, all of these memories come flooding back. I missed my dad. I loved my kids. I missed my friends and my family, and I started to feel hurt on the inside for the things I had done. I drove to my mom's house, and a state trooper friend of mine was there waiting on me. I didn't know it at the time, but my mom had planned an intervention. I had dropped a bag of meth at her house a week prior, and she gave it to the trooper. He asked me how long I'd been in addiction and told me I could get help voluntarily or that he would charge me with possession. In my heart, I knew this was God. I knew this was him intervening in my life. I knew this was him giving me the chance that I had just asked him for. I didn't want to go, but I knew I needed help. I saw this as God's way of getting me the help I'd asked for. I agreed to go, and I stayed at my mom's for the next 3 days detoxing. Since I had been mixing antipsychotics, antidepressants, and methamphetamine, my detoxing was pretty rough. I had constant seizures for about 3 days. After that, I was extremely sick. The following Wednesday, I was driven to Columbus, Georgia to Teen Challenge Women's Recovery Center. There was a part of me that felt relieved. When I walked in those doors of that center for the first time, I felt safe. There was a sign with my name on it and the verse, Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. God spoke to me through this verse because I knew this next year was going to be the hardest year of my life. But I also knew that if I gave it to God and gave him control, that he would change my life. I walked through the salvation prayer a few days after arrival, and I started to dig into God's word and pray. God started to show me who I was through his eyes, and I started to see my own value through him. I started to learn the value of serving others and not just myself. I learned to walk through a lot of unforgiveness that I had held on to for so long. Through Christ, I was able to step out of the grief that I was stuck in, and I received healing from the loss of my dad. I never experienced anything like the love of Jesus Christ. The more I poured out to him, the more he poured into me. Therefore, if any man be in Christ, he is a new creation. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things become new. 2 Corinthians 5:17. I left the center in June 2018. Coming home was bittersweet because I had never lived on my own as a Christian before. God blessed me with an amazing support team. My family supported me, and God restored all of my relationships with them and most of the relationships with my friends. I went back to school and I got my credentials. I started a new job and quickly got plugged into a church. But if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another. And the blood of Jesus Christ, his Son, cleanses us from all sin. 1 John 1:7. There were a few relationships I had to let go because I discovered over time they were toxic. I was nervous about going to a church outside of the center, but God had plans for me. During my stay at the center, a lady taught me how to pray for my husband. Y'all, I thought she was crazy. After getting out of one divorce, the last thing I wanted to do was pray for a husband. But over time, I started to listen to her, and I did just that. I started praying for a husband. I was extremely specific in my prayers with God. I wanted someone in my life who helped me grow closer to God, not push me away. As I was going to this new church, I never felt like it was home, but I knew God only wanted me there temporarily. A few weeks after going, I met a man named Roderick. I immediately knew in my spirit that there was something special about him. However, I did not think I was ready for a relationship. We started talking, and quickly I knew he was the one that I've been praying for. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't scared to death. But I had confirmation after confirmation. Shortly after, we married. We felt like it was time to find a new church, and that's when we come to Normal Assembly of God. I fought God on this one because I was still holding on to shame and guilt from my past. The church was a little too close to home. But out of obedience to God and my new husband, I went. And the moment I walked in the doors, I knew this is where the Lord wanted me. We got involved in everything we could. My pastor asked us to share our testimony with the congregation, and it was a relief because after hearing all the things I've done and what a horrible person I was, they still loved me. And I had people that I could share my relationship with God with. We started serving at Normal Assembly any way we could. We became members. My life had changed so much once I added God to every equation. I was trusted with responsibilities again. I developed godly friendships. My family became involved in the church community. You make known to me the path of life. You will fill me with the joy in your presence, with eternal pleasures at your right hand. Psalm 16:11. On February 2020, we were asked about Celebrate Recovery. Both of our hearts seemed geared to recovery ministry. We prayed for an opportunity to serve people in recovery. We were asked to join a step study, but neither of us really felt like we needed it. We were already sober. After praying about it, we decided that we would do the step study. And about 3 months into it, we both learned we still needed freedom in a lot of areas. I started working on my self-image. I started working on anger, overanalyzing, and now I'm working on codependency. Learning and working the 12 steps has really helped me grow in my recovery. I was able to work through things with my self-image, insecurities, by finding my self-worth in God. Proverbs 31:15 says, "She is more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare to her." I started to understand that my love for Jesus is what makes me beautiful, not what other people think. One of my other go-to verses is Romans 7:18. "For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is in my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out." This reminds me that I can't do this alone, that I need God every day, every single step of the way. This world can be critical, so it's important for me to hang on to the fact that I am not worthy, but Jesus that lives in me is worthy of all the honor, glory, and praise. Working the 12 steps isn't always easy, but through this program, I've met people who can relate and understand my walk. I have found community that I can trust and grow with. Sharing my story with others and hearing their struggles and victories has helped me step out of my own comfort zone. God has put a desire into my heart to share my story of what He's done for me and what He's still doing in my life. I work these steps because I know I'm not perfect. They help me stay humble and on track. I've learned through Celebrate Recovery that I am a work in progress. I've learned that if I make mistakes, I am okay. And I've learned the value of community and accountability. I've learned that my past makes me relatable, not a failure. Celebrate Recovery taught me how to take daily personal inventory that has helped me recognize dangerous patterns in my life, which has helped me to prevent relapse. Taking daily inventory keeps me grounded and helps me take responsibility for my actions. I have also learned how to make amends with myself and those who I have hurt and those who have hurt me. Quick forgiveness allows me to let go of things and not hold on to them. I'm so thankful that I serve a God who is forgiving and loving and consistent, even when I'm not. I am thankful that He loved me enough to take my terrible mess and turn it into a message to help others. Me and my husband are now ministry leaders at NCR, along with an amazing team. I thank God for putting me exactly where I'm at right now. 3.5 years ago, I was only living for me. Now God has made me part of something so much bigger, and I'm so excited to see what He has in store for me in the future. Thank you for letting me share.